Hello and welcome out to this week's episode of Outbreak Gamers. I'm your host, David Anthony. WEBDAVE's my gamer tag, and I am here with the one and only Everborn Saga. Sir, thank you so much for being here today. Uh-oh,
I'm
we got
on
you muted.
mute.
Now we're good. There
How's
we go.
everybody doing this fine evening
That's
or
awesome.
afternoon, depending on if you're in Central Time?
Exactly. Whenever you're watching this. This is will be a recorded show and it will go up on Monday. We drop them every Monday. Just seems to be the easiest way to do that. That way, there's not that much pressure on everybody. We just have a good conversation without all the hassle. Is what I like to do.
Hey,
So Everborn, man, you've been on a lot of great podcasts. That's where I got to see you, and you and Cassante do a really good show together. I've seen you on Boom, and then of course you have this amazing content that you've created, the Everborn Saga, which we're gonna get into here in a little bit. But I kind of like to start things off with kind of like, I guess, what was your first job, or maybe like your schooling or things like that you did, starting off as a young lad, to kind of get you where you are today.
well, this is a funny you ask that question. I
Mhm.
have been working since I could walk. I have been working,
Nice.
and I remember I grew up in the Bronx, and the first job that I had, like actually making money, was whenever it would snow, we would go around, and me and my brothers and stuff, we just walk around the neighborhood and say, "Hey, you need your driveway cleaned?" Uh,
Mhm.
and $20, let's go, right?
That's good, yeah.
And that's in the '80s, so $20 was a lot back then.
Yeah.
But then I started packing bags. This is when I was like, I don't know, 12 years old,
Mhm.
in the local ShopRite in Co-op City. And that's interesting because when you think about child labor laws today,
Yeah,
you probably couldn't do that.
probably not.
And then, bunch of stuff. I worked at I'm just taking you through my whole life story, but
That's good.
I worked at Boston Market when I was like 16,
Cool.
and I got fired for eating too much of the cornbread.
Uh-oh.
This is a fact.
That's so funny. I love the
But
cornbread, though.
and then high school, I was working like two jobs while going to night school and day school. It was a whole thing. So I've just been kind of working forever. What When I got out of college the first time, that was back in 2003.
Mhm.
I ended up opening a restaurant. Don't do business with family. That's how that ended. And then I got into the real estate business. I was an agent, and I was a property manager, and then I was a broker. I got my broker's license, had that business there. Then 2008 happened, and I kind of had to do like a reset of like all life.
Mhm.
So at that time, I had always been sort of passionate about tech, and then the iPhone was just starting to take off at that time, and then there was this idea of individuals making millions of dollars by making fart apps on the iPhone in the early days of it, and then Android was burgeoning, and then the Windows Phone came out,
Mhm.
and I was a Microsoft fan, just from Windows, so I said I wanted to get into that world of tech, and so I started interviewing, and then like nobody would call me back because I only had an associate's degree. So I said, let me go back to school, and I started saying I'm going to teach myself how to code, and I did that by making a video game. Now, the first video game I ever released was a game called Star Tennis
Cool.
on the iPhone, and then I redid it on the Windows Phone, and that was in 2012, while I was going back to school, and then the follow up was in 2015, and that uh, was a game called Ariel's World. And it was basically my love letter to 2D platformers, Sonic, Mario, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a very interesting character design. And we were, the week that we came out, we were the #1 paid app on the Windows Phone, which
Nice.
is, I mean, there were like 2 people on Windows Phone, so it's not that nice. But yes, you got to take the W's where you get them.
Amen.
So we and by we I mean me and the artist. I did all the coding. I would not show that project to anyone today, because they would look at me like, if you see the way that was coded, everything was in a single class. It wasn't good, but we did it. We got it out. And then, I didn't really make any money from that. And there were tens of thousands of people playing it, but I didn't make any money from it. And but what it did do is, when I started interviewing with the likes of Microsoft and Facebook and Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, I talked about the fact that I created a project, released it, and had that. So all that work was not for naught.
Right.
So as I was getting out of school, in my early 30s, getting out of school again, right, getting my bachelor's degree, I had something above everyone else, in that I had my own projects, my own software projects, and released them. So I ended up getting a bunch of offers, and I ended up going to Citigroup to be like a technology analyst. And from there I went to another finance firm, where now I'm like a lead software engineer. I lead a team of what was 4 people, but 2 of them left recently. So I lead 2 people, and we're trying to hire 2 more. But so I'm still working in fintech. That's financial technology.
Mm-hmm.
Which is always funny, because I've been working in finance since 2016. And I always hear, people in these Twitter streets saying, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not in finance." And I'm like, if you only knew. But
Yeah.
but while I was doing that, I always said that, I want to make games, and games are, funny enough, what got me to where I am today, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
those games that I made on my own, teaching myself how to code, are what got me into certain rooms, and got me the employment opportunities that I got. So while I didn't make the money from those specifically, I've made it back in dividends. And because I just think everything in life is all connected. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
So now I said I wanna make a sequel, but this time I want to give it a story, right? So you got a kid, his name's Ariel, he's jumping on heads, right? Like Mario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why is he jumping on those heads? Who's he going to save? The idea is like, oh, he won't save a princess because that's been done. He's going to save his uncle. Well, why does he need to save his uncle? Who kidnapped his uncle? And a whole game formed around just, why is this kid going on a journey to jump on people's heads,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And I had so many notes, and then those notes became maps. Then the maps had kingdoms, and then the kingdoms had castles. The castles had kings, and it all became this thing. And then I had enough to write a novel, right? And so there is now today an unreleased, which will be released hopefully later, which we'll talk about in a minute. But there's a full unreleased Everborn novel.
Wow. That's
Right.
cool.
And so when I had all that, I said, there's something here. Right. And so just the fact that I was sort of working on a sequel to the game, it became this whole universe, and there were so many characters with backstories and all those things. So I said, I want to find a way to get this to the world without waiting 30 years to make 15 games to tell this story. So I started producing these comic books. And that's another funny story. you're talking about unreleased novels. There have been a ton of unreleased Everborn comics that just didn't meet my quality standards.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finally connected with the right team that I felt like could visualize what the story I was telling,
Mm-hmm.
we made Prince of Arcadia, and then we followed Prince of Arcadia up with Ariel's Adventure, which is basically the story of Ariel's World, the game that I had made
Mm-hmm.
in 2015. And then we released the Redlands, and now we are working on the Redlands game. It's a 2D beat 'em up kind of Streets of Rage, Shredder's Revenge
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. And then we're going to be releasing some new books this year, a new series, and probably that novel that I told you about. So I say all of that
Mm-hmm.
to say that my entire journey, my reinventing of myself from thinking I was never going to go back to school to and being in real estate, to losing everything, starting over, teaching myself to code, doing that by making video games and actually shipping them, using those video games to get into rooms for certain interviews, to work in some of the biggest financial firms in the world, to then open my own comic book publishing business, as well as several other businesses that me and my wife run. It's all connected to video games. It's connected to the love that I had as a kid and me wanting to make something that was a tribute to that, which turned into a story, which turned into something I could talk about in interviews, which turned into this entire universe we're putting together today.
Right. That's awesome. That is awesome. And
So it's
what?
weird. It's weird that
Go
we
ahead.
got from shoveling snow and packing bags at ShopRite to here, but we made it.
We did. And you know what? That's everybody has a journey. Everybody has to start or do something from somewhere. And I think it's awesome. And I guess shoveling snow in the Bronx in the winter is probably people would pay you that $20 at that time because they didn't want to get out and all that crap because
Well, I
it's
will say
cold. Whew.
it's not $20 anymore.
Right. I was
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
50 at minimum, probably.
Exactly.
Oh goodness, that's funny. That's funny. Well, all right. Well, let's kind of we're going to turn tables just a little bit, but we are coming back to all this. But I want to talk a little bit about your because you're talking about making games. Let's talk about how you got into gaming. Like, what was your first experience with video games, and how did that come about? How did you get to where you're at now, as far
Uh,
as playing?
yeah. Okay. So video games have always been I've always been tangentially connected to video games. My father is like a Pac-Man master. Only video game he ever played.
Nice.
Do not play him, you will lose, right? That being said, I've had cousins that had the NES and Duck Hunt and those things, but I really don't count that as my entry into gaming. And we were always at arcades. But my entry into gaming is the Super Nintendo. And I didn't even own that Super Nintendo, not at first. My neighbors had a Super Nintendo, and we would literally be over there every day. Like, they had to kick us out. And so it got to a point where, the neighborhood that I grew up in, the Bronx, it was around Gun Hill Road.
Mm-hmm.
The entire area was all sort of immigrants, people from Jamaica, coming over, everybody, trying to make a life for themselves and things like that. But everybody's working, everybody's, doing their own business. That's another thing. And I don't want to derail us, but I hope this
That's okay.
will
You go
find
right
a
ahead.
connection. When I grew up, not that we weren't poor or anything like that, but like
Right.
everybody that I knew and that my parents knew, everyone was like, it was basically like a self-contained community, right? You needed to go to get
Mm-hmm.
your car fixed. You would go to the Jamaican guy that you knew that owned a mechanic shop or a body shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to do some work in your house, that's what you do. Everybody would work, whatever they had to do, right? You work, and the idea is you just get your house, and that's your castle, and you raise your kids, and your kids will do better than you. And that whole community, from lawyers to store owners to you name it, it was all about making your own, right? And not sort of it's weird, it sounds weird, but something my father always put in my head was, don't work for anybody. And it wasn't to denigrate work.
Mm-hmm.
It was to make sure you are creating your own business, and you are not relying on the wind blowing in the economy and you losing
Right.
something. So it was basically like self-reliance, and
Makes
telling you to
sense.
always, even if you have to work, it should be working to put towards something that you control. And that's maybe one of the biggest lessons just growing up in the community I grew up in. Anyway, but all that being said, the neighbors had a Super Nintendo, and we were over there every day. They basically had to kick us out. And my parents were just kind of like, listen, you're making us look bad. You're making us look poor that you're over at the neighbor's house. By the way, we were poor.
Right.
But you're not supposed to look poor.
Right.
So one Christmas, my mom got together all her money, and she said, listen, I'm going to buy you a video game only so you don't go to the neighbor's house looking like you're begging them for something.
Oh.
By the way, best friends with the neighbors.
Yes. Yeah. The early community of gaming, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Right. So we got the Genesis, and ever since then, other than the fact that it wasn't allowed to go to the neighbors, we they used to call us Red Eye. That's what you call being kind of envious, right, of your
Oh,
neighbor.
right. Okay. Yeah.
It's a Jamaican thing. So we got the Genesis, and then I was just a Sega kid from there on out, right? And being a Sega kid from the Genesis onward, I always had to have the Sega console first, but I later on ended up getting a Super Nintendo because I had to when Donkey Kong Country came out. I don't know if you remember, that was a big time.
Yes, I do.
But the first game I ever beat, and it is still my favorite game to this day, I play it every couple of years via emulation, is Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. It is not only the best Zelda ever made. I don't care what you Ocarina of Time fans or Breath of the Wild young punks think. Link to the Past is the best Zelda game ever created. And I won't be taking any more questions.
I agree with you.
But that is the thing that I'm like, listen, Nintendo, like you remade Link's Awakening, remake Link to the Past, you cowards.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we need. But anyway, that was the first game I beat, and it was at my neighbor's house. But then, like my mom got us at that time, the Genesis came with Streets of Rage 2 and Sonic 2. So Streets of Rage 2, Sonic 2. And ever since then, those video games by the way, my mom was like, this is the last video game I'm ever buy you. You're going to play these two games for the rest of your life. Right. But I knew at that point that I had to work if I wanted to play all these games. And so I would always, go to the magazine shop and look at Game Informer. I couldn't afford to buy the magazine, but I would go there and look at it until the clerk kicked me out and was like, listen, you gotta buy. They, because of that, I knew what was going on in the gaming industry, and I just had to have whatever was coming out. So I knew I had to work, and that games, I think, kind of gave me my work ethic, right?
Yeah.
They gave me my work ethic to begin with, and they also, helped me along in my career, even if it's tangentially. So I had to, do whatever jobs I could, because I had to have the 32X and the Sega CD, and I there was games on the Super Nintendo that I still need to play. And I remember being godsmacked with the technology of Mario 64, right? And then there was the Saturn, which I thought was an amazing system, but the Dreamcast came out, which was the greatest console ever created. And I'm not even joking with you. And I was 17 or 18 at this time. I legit had tears in my eyes when I heard that Sega was exiting the console business.
Yeah.
And that's not an exaggeration, right? There was literal. I was welling up, right?
Right.
But from there, from the Dreamcast, it just felt like a logical progression to go over to the Xbox. And at that time, I've obviously since outgrown this, but I hated Sony at that time, even though the PS1 was amazing. Like Battle Arena Toshinden, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, like had to have those things. But stupidly at the time, I blamed Sony for getting Sega out of the business. And anyone that tells you that that is the case, that is not true. Sega shot themselves in the foot, stabbed themselves in the back 3 times, and then jumped off a bridge before Sony even entered the picture. Just because Sony was doing things right doesn't mean that they pushed Sega out of the business.
Right.
And if you don't believe that's true, then why is Nintendo still around?
Right.
Because they were better prepared for whatever the market shows. And if Sega was as prepared and they weren't doing all that infighting between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, maybe they wouldn't have had to exit the market. Who knows? I say all that to say, don't blame Sony. It's not their fault. But I am an Xbox guy because I was a Sega kid. And that's why Microsoft needs to buy Sega. And then
we knew we were going to come to that, right?
Here we go.
But no, we'll get into that too. But you're right. I agree with you. I think that would be a fantastic purchase for them to acquire them. So yeah. So with your gaming, I guess you've gone on to to the current gen consoles and everything. So
yes.
So what? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no! I like since that's the reason I told that story. I have everything, and I always will have everything, even though I do most of my gaming on Xbox. There's no way that I wouldn't have a PlayStation because you can't miss games. And if I was a PlayStation guy, there's no way I wouldn't have an Xbox because you can't miss those games. And the same goes for the Switch.
Yep.
And I just got a Steam Deck, which I was talking all kinds of crap about until I got it in my hands.
I remember.
And now I have not turned on the Xbox since I got the Steam Deck, but I've been playing Xbox the whole time via xCloud. And the Steam Deck has made me a believer. I love the device. It makes me feel like a kid again in terms of gaming.
Yeah.
And it feels like a new Game Gear. At least that's the way I'm using it. And you can play Game Gear games on it. But
no, isn't that
great? No, man, it's great. It's a great time to be a gamer. But in terms of what's in the household now, we have 3 PS5s, 2 Series X's, and a Series S. So my son has a PS5. We have a general everybody PS5 for the living room. I've got one in the bedroom. Same goes for the Series X. There's a general one in the living room and then another in the bedroom. And the girls have, I think I said the girls have a Series S. So everybody's good. Everything's great. The PlayStation for me was collecting dust after Ratchet and Clank. And the only reason I didn't get Horizon is because it came out too close to Elden Ring, but it's definitely on my list of things to play. Although if I don't get to it this year, the way 2023 is looking, yeah. So, but right now, because we're working on the Redlands game, all I've been playing is Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Shredder's Revenge and Streets of Rage 4. But it's all like studying for, trying to find the right feel for our Redlands game.
Yeah, trying to get that balance that you want
Yeah.
to. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Kind of
Uh,
taking what I like about all of them and kind
mhm,
of moving away from what I didn't in each of them and seeing if
right,
it can feel different enough while being inspired by those three games.
right. Well, it sounds like it's going to be a fantastic game when it comes out, and I look forward to playing that when it is available. Hopefully, it
Listen,
will.
I'm trying to get that Game Pass money, man. I
Uh,
hope they
I hope you do, man. That'd be awesome.
trying to pay off this mortgage.
That would be nice. That would definitely be nice. So I guess let's kind of gear this toward you had talked about your your the coming up with the with your characters and things in the books and well I guess the novels and stories that you wrote and then I guess they they've come out into this whole world that you've created, the Everborn Saga. So if you don't mind, kind of explain a little bit about what it is, what you've done, and I know you've had several Kickstarters. Like to
Yeah.
talk about how that got you going to where you are now with your own website, which we'll go into after this.
Well, so okay, there's a few layers to that question, and
You
it's a
know,
great question.
okay.
So I kind of said, which is like I've done with everything else in my life. I did not know what I was doing, and I kind of dived in head first. But I have a very big issue that I am always fighting against, which is like self doubt. And so I never believe that my stuff is good enough. And so I can be working on a project for years that someone else would have released. Um, and I just am too worried about it, working on it over and over again to put it out. And I don't say this because it's quality control. I do believe it's actually it might be a character flaw, and I'm not like I'm not down talking myself, but it's there is something, and I learned this from a good friend of mine, Manuel Godoy. He makes the Black Sands comics. You can look him up,
Hmm.
um, which he's been amazingly successful, and I'd like to just catch a fraction of his success. But he always told me this: you have to ship, right? You can't, especially as a small creator, you you are if you just have an idea in your head that never goes out to the world, all it is the ramblings of a madman, right?
Yeah.
You have to do it, and there's so much uh what we like to call fixing to get ready, right?
Hmm.
So you do all this preparation, and it's just a procrastination tactic, right?
Right.
And for me, the procrastination is not the work. The procrastination is the getting to a place where you can release it. So it's like I could cut back on features and release this game in 2 months, or I could add this all new combo system, right? I could add a whole new play mechanic, and now this thing that you were supposed to work on quickly over the course of 2 years is 5 years later. What I'm talking about right now is the sequel to Ariel's World,
Hmm.
which is a game that the scope of it is 60 levels that you can go back and play over. We call it like Mario Vania. Where you kind of unlock power ups and then you go replay levels and you can get back to places where you couldn't before, but it's not a connected map because we wanted to feel, wanted you to feel like you beat a level
Hmm.
as you went forward. But anyway, and you still get to jump on people's heads. But about the Everborn saga, um, I started sort of making the books, and we had like two false starts where we had entire comics produced that will never see the light of day because I just didn't feel like they met the quality bar. But like I said, I met the right team. And then we released the Prince of Arcadia books. And with the release of those books, they were released on Comixology. You can get all of our books on Amazon, which we recommend that for international
Hmm.
buyers because you can get like free shipping with Prime. But on our website, we match Amazon's prices, including the shipping.
Wow,
Um,
nice.
so it's discounted on our website, but that's only if you're ordering in the US. So I always say, if you don't want to pay like $1 million, like $30 shipping for a $10 book, then go to Amazon, and that's why we have it. But Amazon doesn't pay a lot of money. But we made the website because Amazon, like a $10 book, I'll get like $2.
Right.
So we have the website so that one, I like me and my team, which is my family, we handle all the shipping, and I sign every book, and there's a letter with everyone. It's not like handwritten, but we do sign every book, and we have a nice typed out letter that kind of explains the universe. And what the universe is what we like to call X-Men meets Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is the story of Seraphs versus Paladins. And you can think of Paladins like Muggles from Harry Potter, the people who don't use magic. But Seraphs are sort of like demigods. They're the descendants of the old gods who kind of used to walk the earth, but just kind of disappeared one day, and nobody knows why. But they left behind these mortals that had a fraction of their power. And then since then, the Paladins have sort of, because they're greater in number, they've been hunting down Seraphs, and now the Seraphs have a plan to bring back that guy you see in the back with the hammer. That's Magnus. He's like our Thanos of this whole thing. They want to bring him back. Press play on that, by the way, if you can. I don't know if it'll work. It's probably loading, but
it
if
is
you
loading.
can,
it shows it's loading at the moment.
So once it loads, check it out. It's we did a whole pilot animation, but there's a war brewing, and this is the story of how that war plays out, and all the plots, politics, and war, and how this little kid is the 16-year-old kid is at the center of all of it, and he's going to have to face off against that big guy in the back, Magnus.
It's cool.
And then we have other parts of the world, so you can see some of the books. And the reason we say it's like Lord of the Rings meets X-Men, those Seraphs are, like I said, born with different powers from the gods, and it can manifest as anything. So if you can control the wind, you're a wind whisperer, right? There are fire starters. There are woods whisperers who can kind of control the earth and plants and vines, think like poison ivy, things like that. So
cool.
Our story starts with Prince of Arcadia, and then we do a time jump 30 years later. So you see the guy, the two books in the middle, that guy with the gold sword, that's the young Baltimore, and the bald guy in the book next to him, the blue book.
Yeah.
That's him as an old man.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he was a prince, but 30 years later, he's living in hiding, keeping this kid under wraps. And on the other side of the world, you have the Redlands, and Arcadia's in the east, the Redlands is in the west, and they are going to meet up, which I don't want to tell you how yet, but
right.
Let's just say it's all connected.
Yeah.
And then we've got the novel that's coming out that you see at the top there. That's the actual cover art for the novel.
Which one? Am I going too far?
No, go all the way to the top. That.
Okay.
That's actually what the book looks like. That's not like we have a graphic of a book. That's the book.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
So that when we get it, when I can get a competent editor to fix all my typos, we will get that out. I'm hoping to do that with a Kickstarter. But I say all of this, and I talked about my shortcomings with procrastination. Hey, see if you can click on that, because I want to take you to the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So that link at the top, because we might get to play the animation. That's why I want to show it to you. Scroll down a little bit. Press play. Well, no, not there. Scroll down again.
Whoops. There we go.
Keep going. Should see. There we go. That's the video that wouldn't load on the website, which I
Okay.
have to figure out why. This animation took a year to produce, by the way. You can only afford to produce 1 minute.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. So and we had that done for the first Kickstarter. We used it again for the second Kickstarter. I say all this to say, because I sort of wanted to make sure I could deliver on what I was promising.
Mm-hmm.
Every Kickstarter, we produced 4 books on our own before doing the first Kickstarter.
Wow.
Right? I did not want to be one of those people that says, "Hey, we're trying to make this, help us out," and then it's like, on second thought, didn't work out.
Right.
So we did this, and both of them were funded in the first 24 hours. But I say all that to say, even with these books, we complete the book in its entirety to the point where there's only lettering left, and then we bring it to Kickstarter, so you know that you have a finished product. So
Nice.
basically, what we try to do is I'm saying we, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
I fund the book on my own up front and try to make that production cost back in the Kickstarter. And then, if we can do that, then we order some books in bulk, and then you kind of try to make your profit off of the books that you have left over after fulfilling the Kickstarter. So, and one more thing I want to show you, if you scroll all the way down,
No, we'll do it.
it's going to be another, keep going. This one. This is YouTube, so it'll play.
All right.
This is the sequel to Ariel's World that has been in development hell for over 6 years. And we've decided, because it's such a complex project, we wanted to work on the Redlands game, which is easier to produce, and then come back to this, and we're kind of revamp it. But this game has been done about 3 times. I just want this to come out and be our sort of shining hit, million seller thing.
Yeah.
So
you may play it?
Yeah. Press play. And I want you to, I hope you can see the quality here of something that is basically a one-man team plus the artists.
I think it looks beautiful.
So I try to put so many concepts from my favorite platformers in here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, if you grew up in the 16-bit era, because 2D platformers are not the same today. Like, they're great. Ori is amazing. Celeste, fantastic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you would count Cuphead as a 2D platform, but kind of is. It's like a shooter,
Right?
2D platformer. But my point is, it's not, and this is not to take anything away, but it's not the 16-bit era of 2D platforms. And if you love that, you will love this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. And all the games that we will make out of the Everborn game arm,
Mm-hmm.
they are all love letters to where I entered gaming, which is the 16-bit era. So this is a 2D platformer. The Redlands is a beat 'em up, again in the style of Streets of Rage and TMNT, and the Prince of Arcadia game is basically going to be like Final Fantasy Tactics, which is like a turn-based game, and then the Remnant, which is the next comic series we're going to release, which is actually a direct adaptation of the novel. That is going to be a love letter to Link to the Past, my favorite game of all time. So
very cool.
4 series, 4 games, each in a different genre. Also, the books are all a different tone. So if you're in the shonen stuff, you may want to get Ariel's Adventure. If you're in the seinen, Game of Thrones type of stuff, you'll want to get Prince of Arcadia. If you're into like Ocean's 11s and plots, because that's about a band of thieves, then you will go to the Redlands. And if you want like hardcore fantasy, the Remnant is where you go. And they all connect, they all tie into each other, and all the characters meet and show up in each other's books.
That's very cool. Well, I'm totally impressed by the quality of this, and you can tell that you really put your heart and soul into it, and it's very quite impressive.
It's my life's work.
Well, good job so far.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
Yeah. Oh, I know you are, and I think you're going to succeed. Like you said, it's I know you talked about having a little bit of, I guess, not to say doubt, but like just, is it really going to be good enough? Is it going to be meet my expectations, kind of thing? But I mean, you've released some so far, so it's got to give you a little bit of confidence to know that you can put out a great product.
Each book we do, and I'm not blowing smoke up your behind. I don't know if we can curse on this show.
You can, yes.
But
I've had Dealer on. You can say whatever you want.
I genuinely believe this, because we're getting better with every book that we produce. We've released 6 books already, right?
Wow, awesome.
We as we speak right now, there's a book that is done, but again, this is my self-doubt. The Remnant chapter 1 is done, and it covers the first 3 chapters of the novel. But I don't feel like because the novel starts out as a slow burn and then gets kind of ridiculous, like Fast and the Furious. They started with stealing DVD players, and now they're like superheroes. That's the bell curve.
So you're saying you're going to space? I'm
yeah. But that being said, because the book starts off slow, the comic adaptation has started off slow, and so I want to bundle chapter 1 and 2 as a single sort of graphic novel, so it'll be like 120 pages. And our chapters are 60 pages, by the way. Normal comics, they do like 24. We do 50 to 60 per book. Awesome. So it's like 2 issues in one. But that being said, it'll be like 120 pages, and it will cover like the first 4 to 6 chapters of the book. And we will end on a very interesting cliffhanger that I think will want people coming. We'll have people wanting to come back. And that's the goal, right? We want to introduce a new series and have it be better than the last. And I think every book that we have done has gotten progressively better. So that when the books are further along and when I know they're done, so I can guarantee a date, that is when I'll announce the next Kickstarter.
Nice. Well, I'm sure you're going to make that announcement on one of the other mini podcasts that you're on when that does happen, and I will look forward to hearing about that as well.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, dude, I'm excited. I'm actually gonna after we get off done with this, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna probably order me something.
My man.
There you go. Well, I want to support the community, and this excites me. This my daughter and my son both are into the comics and manga and that kind of thing. So this is kind of like something that they would enjoy. And classic 16-bit. That's my son. He's 31 now, and he that's when he was playing Donkey Kong Country, and he could, barely pronounce it. So when he was little, and he gets mad at me every time I say this, but he would pronounce it Donkey Tong.
That's
Dad, I want to play Donkey Tong. I said, sure, son,
it,
let's do
man.
that. Love you,
So
Logan. Sorry about that, buddy. But as that bus, I just threw you under. But yeah, no. So I'm right there with you. But dude, and that's great. And of course, with the website, I'm gonna go back to it real quick. Let me remove that frame here. But I would say on your website, what did, I didn't add the stream. There we go. That there also is I guess a catalog where people
oh yeah,
can.
yeah, we have the merch. We released a new T-shirt today. I don't know if you
Oh,
saw that.
I did not.
All right, now go over there. It says filter. Well,
Yeah.
actually, you can scroll down. We'll go through it. We'll go through it. We'll
Okay.
scroll down. So you can see some of the wall art that we do.
Oh yeah.
And those are like matte finish. It's you can see it behind me, like they're very big.
Yeah.
You can get them framed if you want. So I don't recommend that. I do recommend if you want it framed to order it because it's a standard size. There's the one, second to last,
Right here. Oh.
right there. We released this T-shirt today because of all the drama that was going on
That's so funny.
in Twitter. So,
I love it. I love it.
but
Now shouldn't you charge him more? Shouldn't it be? I'm
see,
just
that
kidding.
was the thing. That you no, it's funny that you say that. I just
Yeah.
tweeted that to Mag. I thought about charging $69.99, but I did not want to sort of because the people that would buy this, I don't want to charge them more because
Right.
they're not saying they would happily throw away their money.
Right.
So, um,
That is awesome. No, I do love it. Let's quickly scroll through the last couple of pages here so people can kind of get an idea. And easily, like I said, it's I'll have it in the description below. Links to everything we'll be talking about today, all the podcasts that you're on, and of course your website where they can click right to it. So we'll have that on there, and you go to the website. Then you can obviously watch some of the videos for yourself, and you can also get in and order this amazing beautiful artwork and merchandise that he has available. So that is awesome.
yeah, man, we've been doing this for some time now.
Hmm.
And again, I like we do this. And I don't want to. Again, this is not like kumbaya stuff,
Right.
but like I, you know, myself, my partner in crime, my lady, you
Hmm.
know, we have our businesses. I have my career, and I whether I made money on this stuff or not, and I don't think that we've officially turned a profit with all the investment we've put in, I would do it anyway, right? So
Right.
this is being made because um one, we've been fortunate enough that I can afford to have a project like this that takes years of investment and blood, sweat, and tears
Hmm.
to maybe turn into something one day. But I like if I won the lottery tomorrow, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm with you. Yep.
We do well enough. We could always be doing better, but we do well enough. This isn't about that. This is about creating something and having an idea in your head and then putting it out into the universe and then having it be a thing that goes into people's hands and hopefully hearts and minds. And I think that that's a powerful thing. And even, and that was solidified for me when we did the first game, that Ariel's World game. I think there were 70,000 people that downloaded that.
Hmm.
And it's like, this is a game. And I was broke at the time when I made it because I was kind of restarting or whatever.
Hmm.
But this game is made by a guy basically in his basement who has nothing and taught himself how to, make a game. And
Hmm.
now 60,000 people are playing that thing that little old me did.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
it hit me, and I want to do more of that. So it's not. This is about the creative process more
Hmm.
so than anything else. And we do the Kickstarters because we want to like at least break even. But like this is really a passion project, and it's my life's work. I've been doing it for over a decade,
Yeah.
if you count all the game stuff, and it's all led to this moment here on the
Yeah.
Outbreak podcast.
Oh, well, gosh, I'm so humbled. But I tell you though, it really you can tell that you have a passion for it. You have it. You have this whole world. I can just imagine that all this is in your head, and I mean, when you're going into the world of the Everborn Saga, that you are in it. I mean, you could, there's, around every corner, you've already got that thought out of how it's going to go and how things are going to be, and I think it's awesome.
Well, and this is the thing. And maybe this can be true to varying degrees.
Mm-hmm.
I and I mean this from like the deepest pit of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that everyone has a story in their head like that. And the only difference is, and maybe it's not a story, maybe it is a show, meaning like what you're doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
what people do when they make their own music, right? Everybody has that thing in them that they can do, and the only difference between any of us is that some of us go out and try it. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
and that's it. And you cannot, and this is advice I'm giving to myself right now, so I'm not like lecturing anybody.
No, it's going good. Keep it
You
up.
you you can't be afraid to fail.
Right.
Me being afraid to fail has stopped me from doing so much things that, and because this is the thing, you fail, it's not a failure if you learn from it. And so, if you can, take every failure, really be introspective, look at, what went wrong, what you could have done better, as long as you're not blaming every one of your failures on an external source.
Right.
I have this rule of thumb where I say, even if it's not my fault, it's my fault.
Right.
And when and this is not to self-deprecate,
Right.
but it is to say that something, I may have done nothing wrong, but I put myself in a position for something to not work out, right?
Right.
And if you can be, if you can allow yourself that level of agency, you can fix so many things that you want, and you can accomplish so many things, right? Because you can step outside of yourself and kind of take that 30,000 foot view of any situation to improve. So it's not about big bang, it is every day, little bit, little
Yeah.
bit.
Baby
And
steps.
yeah, and one other, and I'll again get off the soapbox,
That's
right?
good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Whatever you want to do, and this is advice I had to give myself,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's going to take a long time, just start it.
Yeah.
Right? The I don't have my Netflix deal yet, right?
Right.
But I love the process, right? And nothing that is worth having is easy or fast to get, right? And I read a book one time called the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, right? You should check that book out. No, it's really good. But it talks about that, nothing worth having being easy, right? So I'm saying all this to say, if you want something and it's a huge goal and maybe it takes years to accomplish, that time is going to pass anyway. And you will either have made progress in that time or you will have wished you started.
Right.
And the best time to do anything is in the past. So
Yep.
if you start now, today, right? Don't worry about how long it'll take to get there.
Right.
And this is a line from the novel. Don't think about the last step. Think about the next step.
There you
Right?
go. Yep.
So you put one foot in front of the other, you put your head down, you go to work. And I would argue that the journey in and of itself, knowing that you're moving towards whatever goal you have, is what is more satisfying than actually achieving it. And we should probably talk about some more games. I'm done.
Well, no, man. I mean, it's good advice, and it's like I said, it's you can tell it's your passion, and it's got you where you are now, and I think it's going to continue to carry you uh through this journey with your content, and I look forward to playing your games on Game Pass. Just
There we
saying.
go. And I look forward to also releasing the game on PlayStation at $70.
I probably will pass on that one. Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing
Game
with
Pass on it.
you. Well, I'll
You see
Game
what I
Pass on
did?
it.
You see
That's
what I
it. You
did?
see what you did there. I see it. I see it. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Well, let's turn this a little bit,
Yes,
and
sir.
let's get this into so you do several different podcasts, and you're a guest on a lot of different shows too, which is fantastic. But I guess let's how did you and I guess Kayasante come up and start doing the the gaming I don't know,
The Gaming Circle
gaming
podcast.
circle
Well,
podcast. Yeah, I'm
so
sorry. Drew a blank.
before
Sorry.
before we get there,
Sure.
and this won't be long winded, I promise.
You go right ahead, man.
This was not my first foray into podcasting.
Okay.
Back in 2017, I turned my basement into a podcast studio. And I built a network called the R Squared Network. This is why my corporation is called R Squared Entertainment and not Everborn Entertainment, because it started there. And we basically had 3 shows a week. And one was about TV and movies, which was On the Reel. That was a 3-man show, and then we brought in guests from time to time. But like live interviews, and every show was in person. We treated it like it was a radio channel,
Nice.
but it was for like Facebook and YouTube at that time. And we did pretty well. We were doing like 10,000 views per show, but I don't know how many views we really did, because Facebook has been known to cook the books in terms of video stats. So, but that is a question for the DOJ. But so that On the Reel was one show, and that's the one that I had revived, which we will talk about momentarily. I revived that with Kay Asante, but like I said, we'll come back to that shortly. And then we had another show called The Second Page that was basically spawned after the 2016 election. And it was all about politics, right? Like hardcore. And I made it my business that we had like staunch liberal and then a conservative on there. And then I tried to be the one to solve kind of be the referee in the middle.
Right.
And it was a good show, lasted for a little while. And then there was another show called the 36 Chambers of Fatherhood, where we just talked about, being, fathers in your 30s. What's that like? And, we did that for a year and a half. And because, everybody had to come in and we were waiting for it to take off, then like participation started dwindling in terms of the co-hosts. And so we kind of shut that down. And then that was in 2019. And then, we were kind of leading up to the launch of the next gen consoles. And at that time, I had kind of taken literally 5 years off of gaming, except to play Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Right. But other than that, no games after Halo 5. And that means I missed The Witcher. That means I missed Red Dead Redemption. That means I missed it all.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So, but I come back into it. And And the PS5's getting ready to launch. All the rumors are happening, and then I start listening to. I just start searching for like Xbox news,
Yep.
and then
Sounds
I find
familiar.
yeah, and then I find Cult, and then Cult leads me to Dealer, and then one day Dealer had Mads gaming on his show, and then one day Mads had Cog on his show, and then Cog led me to the Iron Lords podcast, where I go and I learn about King David and everybody, and
Mhm.
then I get into the Twitter streets, because that's where all the news was breaking. That's what all the shows were about. And then I learn about Mr. Boom, and then I go and listen to his show, and I start listening to Boom's show every day. And Boom, at that time, he was doing this thing where he said, "Listen, if you are a member of the community, Mooch gave me my break. I want to give somebody their break. You want to come podcast with us? Come in." So I reached out to Boom. I said, "Listen, I got a couple years of experience podcasting. I love what you guys are doing. Can I come on the show?" And he had me on the show. And then at that time, I think Forte was leaving the show, Gaming Forte.
Mhm.
And then, a few weeks later, he asked me to, be a regular, which was like a big deal. And I still appreciate him for that. And, I just continue to be active in the gutter or cesspool that is these Twitter streets, as we like to
Mhm.
call them. And I, meet a lot of people there. And I like to, I know neutral is a dirty word these days. Um, and I don't like to pretend to be a fake neutral.
Right.
So I try to, in every interaction that I have online, I treat it as though it was an in-person interaction.
Mm.
Because I think a lot of people hide behind, little avatars, and they can
Right.
say anything, and people lose context and everything. So anything I say to anybody, my rule of thumb is speak to people as if they were close enough to punch you in the face.
Good words of advice. I
Yeah.
like that.
So that's what I do, and people have gravitated to that. But I do want to just take a moment to kind of shout out the Xbox community in general, because
Mhm.
everybody has been so welcoming. Like you think Rand, I call Rand literally on his cell phone in the middle of the night when I have a random conspiracy theory about like Microsoft buying Sega. I
Yeah.
said it again. But the point is, Rand has come to has come to our show and the Gaming Circle podcast. I've been on RDX.
You say
Um,
Rand, right? Right.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
The man with a
Randall.
million.
yeah.
Yes. Cult has come to Boom Show. Jeff Grubb, I've podcasted with Tim Dog. And so I've just always felt like the Xbox, and maybe that's what they're built on or whatever.
Mhm.
They've all been super supportive, even of because you go in other spaces, and I'm not saying this about the PlayStation guys. Maybe if you say you like PlayStation, the PlayStation podcast will reach out to you. But really, so many people that did not have to reach out to me have reached out to me, and I've built actual friendships with so many people that I was literally fans of when
Nice.
I was getting back into this. And with the Gaming Circle podcast, that started because I had the podcast itch, and Kay Asante, who we met on Twitter, but we're like I guess kindred spirits or whatever. We would literally talk on the phone about the gaming industry for hours. And one day we were like, you know what? We should just record this.
Yeah.
And then that became the Gaming Circle podcast. And I said, if we're going to start that back, I want to bring back On the Real. I think the community, I think there's a lot of people talking about movies, but not in the way that we view them or that I view them. And I think I have something to say. And we brought back On the Real, and I brought back one of the panel members of On the Real, the original On the Real. So there was me and Kay Asante and my brother. And then at the end of 2021, everything was so hectic, and we ended up taking like a 2-week break from that show, and I have never found the time to restart it.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. So it's always like even like just finding time to do my own show has become daunting, between trying to write upcoming, chapters of the comics, and then try, because I'm the only coder on the games, and try to get the game out while still producing, because writing and coding is a completely separate job from marketing and just overall project management and production. And when you're starting out, you got to do it all. So when you're doing all of that, and then you actually have a day job, and then you still have to be a family man, all my time spoken for. And now you know why it took so long for us to have this interview.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. Most definitely. And appreciate that you're making time tonight. I thank you so much for that.
No, man, I should have got to it sooner. That's my apologies. There's some people I got to get back to too. There was one guy that was like, he wanted me to do an interview, and then I just couldn't get back to him, just because everything was going on.
Sure.
And then he said, I'll buy some of your comic books, and I felt so bad. I'm like, no, you do not have to buy the comics for me to come on the show. I just literally don't have time right now.
Right. I mean, life happens, man. Everybody has to do things. Plus, I mean, you're was it recently married?
Well, we didn't do the ceremony yet, but
Gotcha.
I said it. I've been calling this woman my wife for years.
Yeah.
It was high time I made an honest woman out of her.
Yeah.
So we're planning the wedding now, which we'll maybe do next year or the year after, but it's going to be in Jamaica on a beach.
Dude, that's awesome! Congratulations.
So we'll get there when the timing is right. And we also, like I said, we run several businesses. One of them is a daycare that we open together. So
very cool.
And then we got some rental stuff. So again, I'm only saying that all because of video games.
Yeah,
it's all connected, man.
It is. Yeah, I like that, man. I like it. I mean, you definitely, you have your priorities straight. You have your head down. You really, it's a joy talking to you. It's a joy listening to you, and you're very passionate, especially like when you're on your show, and you and Asante. There's times when you guys not in a mean way by any means, but there's times when you definitely come at each other, or you'll say something, and you can tell you may make a comment or he may make a comment just to get one or the other riled up.
Yes, but the reason I love that, because I hate being in a place where there's a bunch of yes men, because you can't grow. And I think we should all like take this lesson and I'm not going to get political, but we should take this lesson for politics. I just feel like we're in this place where people do not know how to they don't know how to process opposing views, right? And if you can't handle an opinion that is separate from your own, I don't think you believe what you say you believe.
Right.
At least not that strongly. Because when I believe something, there is nothing you can say to me, right? Because I believe what I'm saying. So we can debate all day, and I genuinely want to hear and understand why, because I want you to change my mind. Right. Because if I was dead set on a certain idea or a concept, and you can change my mind on it, I feel like I'm better for it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm saying?
Yes.
And if you're not open to new ideas, if you're not open to at least hear someone out in good faith, then I just wonder how strongly your beliefs are held.
Right. So. A good point. That's a very good point. And I mean, and you're proof of that because you have a Steam Deck.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were gonna say because I go into these PlayStation spaces all the time. But no, yes. I do. There is something that is very deliberate about all my interactions, though, and I want to say this online. I don't, the kind of like fake neutral stuff is transparent and annoying to me.
Mhm.
I would like to prove that you can be a fan of something, but you can still be objective. And I hope that that comes through in everything, in all the interviews that I do, or all of the podcasts that I'm on, where you know, everybody says they tell it like it is, but you can kind of see where they have blinders.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have blinders for like Sega, but barring that,
Yeah.
I try to say, listen, I do most of my gaming on Xbox, but I if I see a spade, I'm going to call it a spade.
Right.
At least I try. Maybe it doesn't come off that way, but I want to be the walking proof that you can be a fan of something and not be an idiot.
There you go. There you go. Well, as we start to kind of wrap things up, I do want to there's two questions I want to ask you. One which I go at and ask everybody. Which we'll get to that one right now, and then I got another quick little follow up, and before we get our outros. But I guess what is the video game that I guess that has been announced, so officially announced, not like if it's a
Sonic
behind the scenes kind
Frontiers.
of thing.
That's it. Sonic Frontiers. That's it.
So that's the game you're looking forward to the most.
The most. It is,
Yeah.
from the moment it was announced, that was going to be my and this has nothing to do with whether it will be good or not. But that is going to be my game of the year, Sonic
Yeah.
Frontiers. And I will tear it apart as I have. I'm
Yeah.
famous for saying there's only one good Sonic game every decade, and we are due.
There you go. There you go.
So
Well, I love like Sonic Adventures and those kind of games.
Sonic Adventure was great.
Yeah.
Sonic Sonic Generations was the last good Sonic game, apart from Sonic Mania.
Yeah.
But that's the
Yeah. Well, that's good because I know like when he first came out, people were like, well, the environment's not this or not that or not, and I'm like, it's that's beta form. Let's give it a little more chance for it to show it. But I think it looks amazing, and I'm with you. I'm looking forward to this game.
2 words for you:
Okay.
cyberspace.
Ah,
Right?
yeah.
Those are the levels that are like the existing, you're running on the track and doing the loop to loop. So that open world stuff is there, but it's just a way to unlock the cyberspace levels that are going to be more like what people are used to.
Hmm.
And they basically put Sonic in a sandbox.
Mm.
And I don't get all the hate, man. Let Sonic be great.
Exactly. Let him be great. Well, then I guess the last question, which is actually going to go back to Sega. So I guess I mean, we have the acquisition coming up. We hopefully it'll be closed soon. And you've made yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to sell the Everborn Saga to Embracer Group. So
There you go.
we'll
I
see.
think.
See what happens. Trying
Well,
to come up on
apparently
this
they're
payday.
buying. So
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
Call me. Embracer Group.
There you
We
go.
can talk.
There you go.
I need points on the back end, but we can work something out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So what are your I mean, you've made it known that you would like for Sega to be acquired by Microsoft. Why do
Yes.
you think it should happen? And do you really think that it is a possibility?
Should it happen? Yes. Will it
Okay.
happen? Probably not. And I'll explain why on both.
Okay.
Microsoft is making strides lately in Japan, but it is still laughable when comparing it to the other native consoles. It's a slap in the face when it comes to the Switch, how good that's doing over there. But like this PlayStation is still trouncing it in that region, and that's their home region, so it's fine. But in the 21 years that Xbox has been a thing, there were a few bright spots, but they've never really been able to crack that market. They've proven that, right? It is just
Mhm.
not their sort of core competencies, and so they've been relying on partnerships. And partnerships were great in the 360 days when you had such a user base that you were too big to be ignored, right? with what happened with the Xbox One generation, because the market share wasn't there, there was no reason to support, um, an ecosystem where you probably won't get a lot of, benefits on the back end. So I think if Microsoft is serious about actually coming to play in that region of the world, they need to buy a Japanese publisher who has roots in the region. And there's no one with more roots and a longer legacy, save for Nintendo, than Sega, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sega has also been restructuring the company lately to separate the assets to where it could potentially be feasible for a buyer to come in and take the Sega assets away from Sammy, right? They sold off their American arcade business to the executives. They again kind of restructured the company to at least have some level of separation. And the Sonic movies have been doing really well. I think the latest one did like 400 million. I don't know what the budget was. And then they've got Frontiers coming out. And if Frontiers comes out after the success of Sonic the Hedgehog movie 2, I think they'll be off to the races. So the reasons are there. So you buy Sega, and you have them be your Japanese development arm, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree.
Right. You put Sega's name back on the building in Akihabara, right?
Mm-hmm.
You do that because Sega, as a publisher, and especially if they have, the financial backing of Microsoft, they can get into more rooms than Microsoft could on their own. As a cowboy,
Mm-hmm.
with his hat and belt and buckles and spurs, walking into these Japanese boardrooms, right?
Right.
So Sega can do that for you. Sega at overnight legitimizes you in that space.
Agreed.
And I say Sega because I'm a Sega stan, unapologetic, by the way. And I will start console warring again if this ever happens. I'm telling everybody now.
Yeah.
But they seem to have the closest relationship with Sega, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that means nothing because PlayStation had a closer relationship with Activision, and look how that went.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So, but I we say that because of the history, and again, they've shared CEOs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Peter Moore left from Sega after the Dreamcast to go and run Xbox during the 360 generation, which is
Mm-hmm.
wild, right?
Yeah.
And at the time where there were, and I know this because I read it in the book, there was a time where Microsoft was in talks, and it came up, and Bill Gates was talking to the CEO of Sega at the time, and they were kind of saying, "Let's get this deal done." And the deal fell apart because Sega wanted back compatibility of the Dreamcast on the Xbox so they could send their customers somewhere.
Right.
And there was something to do with how they wanted to implement internet, and the talks fell apart. But so that means it could have happened, and they shared CEO, and they're super close now, and they're putting all of their games in Game Pass, even Persona, the one that
Yep.
people thought would never come, and it's coming, and they've got that deal for the technology. So if you bring them in, they're already on board and using your tech,
Yep.
right? And again, they're a publisher. They can get you stuff, and they're big in the PC space. That's why I think it should happen. Now,
I agree with you.
why it won't happen
Okay.
is because Microsoft has shown zero interest in acquiring non-Western publishers. And because of that, I don't know that they are buying any more individual studios, right?
Right.
And the reason for that is Xbox is very big, ZeniMax is very big. Satya seems to be more keen on buying publishers. Why? Because the publisher basically you buy them, and it's like you're buying a turnkey business instead of building a startup, which is very risky and very expensive and very time consuming before you can see a profit. You buy a publisher, day one you have a set of IPs they come with. Day one you have a work pipeline. Day one you have revenue generated and income coming in, and it is now paying for itself on day one.
Yep.
And then if there's opportunities for synergies, like onboarding them to your Azure cloud services and take that cost away from them, now they're even more profitable day one. So I say that to say, I think they will only be going after Western publishers. So we shall see. But
Right.
if they are going after something in the East, they should get Sega. And I know Kei Asante thinks that they should buy Embracer Group. And if it means we get Tomb Raider and Crystal Dynamics back, I would say yes, go for it. But I think if you're going to buy somebody like Embracer instead, you buy Devolver Digital. You know why? Quality.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
would have basically the best indie game publisher on the market, putting everything in Game Pass day one. So in between your 3 or 4 bangers a year, they are dropping a game of the year level, small team, indie budget, high art, memorable game every other month of the year, because that's what Devolver Digital does.
Yeah.
So I think if they're not gonna, and I don't think Devolver Digital is in the US. Maybe they are. Maybe they're in Europe somewhere. But Microsoft, for the most part, has stayed in the West, whether it's the US or Europe, to buy studios, and I just think that's going to continue.
Yeah.
But so if they're not going to buy Sega, I say go after Devolver Digital if it's a publisher. And I
There
don't
you
know
go.
that I want Microsoft buying another studio right now until I see them start to produce. I think there's
Right.
a lot on Matt Booty's plate. And if they buy a publisher, I'm fine with that because the publisher already has their own work processes,
Right.
right? You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to integrate them. They don't need your help holding hands, whereas your own studio does. And sometimes, you might argue that they may not be getting all the help they need. So we'll see.
There you go. There you go. Wouldn't it be neat if they could put some of the classic Sega Dreamcast games in Game Pass? Boy, that'd be
Um,
nice.
they could just buy Sega now.
There you go.
Sonic could be Sonic and the Master Chief.
That would be awesome. That would be
So
awesome. That would be awesome. Everborn Saga, thank you so much
thank you for
for
having
being
me.
here today, man. This has been great. If you don't mind, um, sell your brand. Tell everybody where they can find you on the webs. Everything is going to be in the link below, but I like the free. It's only to hear it. Well, sometimes that really clicks. So
Luckily for everybody, I try to keep my branding in order. So I am Everborn Saga literally everywhere. That is Instagram, Facebook, obviously Twitter, but also Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. Also TikTok. Also, and this is the most important thing, uh, EverbornSaga.com, where that's the website we were showing
mhm.
earlier. And you can get all the books and merch that we produce and get updates about the new stuff that we have coming out. And also Everborn Saga on YouTube, which I am going to start live streaming soon, the development of the Everborn games.
Nice.
And so this is the last thing I'm going to say, I promise.
Go ahead.
I want the community to be a part of the development of this game. And the reason for that is, between all of us, and I've said this a million times now, we have decades of just knowledge and passion and history with gaming, and with the tools that are available now, it is easier than ever. And it's my goal, if I can convince one other person to make a game, you know what I mean? That idea that they had in their head, that they
Hmm.
said it would be cool if I could do, you can, and the tools are available such that a one-man team can make a game and publish it. And, sky could be the limit. And even if it's not, you still made something. And
Yeah,
so I want to demystify, if I can, what the process is like. And I make a lot of mistakes right now. I'm not like an expert coder or anything near that, but I'm doing it and I'm getting my hands dirty. Right.
that's awesome. Yeah,
I can
yeah,
run fast and I jump high.
I love it.
So,
I love
um,
it.
and that's what I want to kind of, at least if I can hopefully just inspire, and maybe we can have a community instead of people who have never made a game telling developers to their face that their games are trash. Maybe we can have a community full of indie developers making
Yeah,
projects, and
I
some of
like
them
that.
will be good to varying degrees of quality. So that's what I want to do, and that's what I want my mission to be. Just to, if I can inspire people, hey man, if you love it, do it, make it. No
Sounds
greater
great.
joy.
I love it, man. I love it. Again, thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time
thank
today.
you,
I really appreciate having you on here today. Great content, and if you're not subscribed to the channels that he does, there is the Gaming Circle podcast. You definitely want to make sure you're on that. Check that out. You have the description below. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon on that. Plus, he's also on Boom's show. It's the Primetime Gaming. Him and Kay Asante are both on there with another with a huge cast, or should I say, panel members that are absolutely amazing. And it's a great product. And like I said, Everborn has a good passion for gaming, and it comes across, and it's never boring. I guarantee you that.
thank you, man. Thank you so
Oh
much.
man, thank you. And well, of course, if you want to check us out, it's Outbreak Gamers. Outbreakpodcast.com is our website with links to all the videos and interviews that I've done so far. Over 30 and growing, and a lot of great content providers. And it's a good community and a lot of fun. And I know you're gonna get something out of it. So again, thank you so much for being here, and don't forget to like and subscribe this channel as well. So thank you for being here at Outbreak Gamers.